We begin with what Florida lawmakers are doing in Tallahassee. They have extended this year's session to June the 30th in an attempt to reach a budget agreement. It's the one bill that the legislature is constitutionally obligated to pass. Leaders in the House and Senate are divided over tax cuts, with House leaders wanting a sales tax cut and Governor DeSantis favoring a $1,000 rebate. Some of the bills approved include one that will make it more difficult for citizen-led constitutional amendments to make it on the ballot. Lawmakers agreed to roll back a law passed in 2023 that would have forced schools to push back start times in 2026, now leaving the decision up to the schools. One of the priorities for both chambers this year was to address the rising fees for condominium owners. The legislature approved a bill that allows condo owner associations to secure credit lines and invest funds to pay for building repairs, instead of imposing immediate fees to raise large amounts of cash from owners. Those funding requirements were passed back in 2021 after the collapse in Surfside of a 12-story condo that killed 98 people. The legislature failed to make meaningful changes in the state's property insurance market. Senate President Ben Albritton told reporters that he believed changes lawmakers made in 2022 and 2023 are working. He said discouraging lawsuits that insurance companies blamed for the high rates. The Office of Insurance Regulation has reported a 0.7% drop in insurance costs in the fourth quarter of 2024, and 12 insurance companies have entered the state's market this year. Lawmakers did pass a bill that focuses on improving storm relief. It will streamline permitting efforts and prevent local governments from charging more in permit and inspection fees for 6 months after a storm. It also enhances preparedness efforts and training for local officials and language regarding crane safety during storms. That's a response to the crane collapse in downtown St. Pete during Hurricane Milton. And Jackie, I'd like to start with you. There is a lot in there, but so many more residents were expecting to hear more in terms of property insurance.
If you talk to realtors, if you talk to homeowners across Florida, they will tell you that one of their top concerns is the skyrocketing rates that we are all paying for homeowners insurance. It has driven people to sell their homes. It has driven people to leave the state. And while the state will tell you, state lawmakers, as you pointed out, will tell you that there have been reforms in the last couple of years. That's true, but is it enough? We saw hundreds of people filing documented complaints after Ian, people who had lost everything, that were telling people, and they had documents to prove it, that the estimate that their adjuster sent into the insurance company was not what the insurance company paid out. I mean, that's all documented record. We don't know that that's not happening again. The state says that there are new rules on the books, and there are, that they have to deny a claim or they have to pay out a claim within 30 or 60 or 90 days. We don't know if that's enough. But the bottom line is, as you pointed out, 0.7% decrease after year-over-year double-digit gains. That to me does not seem like relief to consumers.
Kim, how do you see all of this playing out for the consumer?
Well, I think that I agree with Jackie. I mean, it's too little too late, actually. And here we are sitting in the beginning, 2.5 weeks away from hurricane season starting again. And I think everybody at this table knows people that are still not in their homes. Yes. They are not, they have not received checks. They have not received relief. They are not living in their homes. And now here we are starting again. I know in my section of the county, which is the fastest growing part of Hillsborough County, actually, we have seen home sales come to an absolute standstill. Nothing is selling. And before, I mean, basically you just had to put it on the market and boom, it was gone. But I think people are looking at, you know, the high cost of living in Florida, because it's not just insurance. I mean, my auto insurance, I don't know about the rest of you, but my auto insurance is almost as much as my house insurance now. And I'm thinking, wow, how is that? Yeah. And I think that they are looking at the high cost of living in Florida, the issues of insurance, and they're kind of saying, yeah, no, I can go somewhere else.
Well, a lot of residents are also saying that they are looking at a lot of things, but they don't see a whole lot of action coming out of the legislature. Ryan, how do you respond to that?
Well, this is the most dysfunctional that observers of this legislature have ever seen it. We're seeing them exchanging subpoenas and impeachment threats instead of dealing with these exact issues that you're talking about. I was glad to see that they did touch on some of these issues, but ultimately, when you've got a divided against itself legislature and an all-out war against Ron DeSantis, I think it's going to be really, really hard to focus on these issues that Floridians want us to focus on, like Kim said. And I think that Floridians are being, after the mass influx that we've seen across the country during the COVID era, during the free state regime period, I think people are voting with their feet against Florida. And I think Florida is looking like a less favorable proposition for many people, largely because of the dysfunction and state government inaction.
Mitch, are you seeing that with your readers of the Florida Phoenix?
Yeah, well, it's interesting in your promo there for what happened. You know, you mentioned the citizen-led constitutional amendments, how that really took a lot of time up in the session this year. That was a top priority of Governor Ron DeSantis following the near passage of Amendments 3 and 4 last year on cannabis and abortion rights, respectively, which both, by the way, passed with majority support, but not the 60% required. So, the legislature, the Republicans, they believe there's petition fraud issues, so they push this through. It's already pretty hard to pass a citizens-led constitutional amendment. Any group who's been involved with this will tell you that. Basically, a $100 million proposition right now. It's going to be much harder. There's big time fines there. It's actually probably less onerous as it originally formed at the beginning of the session. They can't use people who aren't from Florida now, for example, to collect these signatures, which is going to be a problem for the folks who do these things. So that really took up a lot of the oxygen in the room, actually.
Yeah.
Was that really the biggest thing going on? Well, it was a priority for the Republicans.
Well, I just want to say one thing. There have been some good, I've got a list of bills, some good legislation that was passed out of Tallahassee. Unfortunately, the dysfunction, the arguing back and forth, the name calling, everything else, the chaos, the extension, it's just overshadowing everything good that happened because there was some good legislation passed.
But would it be fair to say that constitutionally, the one bill that our state leaders have to pass is the budget, and they've not done that?
Yeah, and it's about taxes, right? And it's about what's the best tax to give to people. Perez went very far out with a reduction of originally 0.75% for reduction of the 6% sales tax, which he said would be about $5 billion, the biggest tax cut ever in the history of the state. Senate President Albritton came back with a little more modest proposal on clothes and shoes. And then the governor kind of, the last hour or the last month or so, throws in this whole thing about property taxes, which is a very major issue to look at and probably is going to be addressed in the next fall in the form of a constitutional amendment. That's why Perez has formed this select committee right now to study the implications of that and where do you get that revenue from, because as we know, that really funds local government in so many ways. So, and where we're at right now, as we said, we don't even know when they're getting back together to discuss this. It's really gotten quite toxic, and they're still $4 billion apart right now. Is this the biggest thing that is necessary? Well, again, the governor will tell you that it's a property tax, that we are having a revolt similar to California in 1978, if you will, in terms of people demanding that. And it's no question that property values have risen big time in the state because it's been more popular state in the last couple years.